So last night I took myself to the theater to see Megalopolis. It was a 10 p.m. screening in IMAX on a Monday night. Why? Because I'm a patron of the arts. And listen, I'm going to be totally upfront about the fact that I have less blind admiration for the genius of Francis Ford Coppola than probably most film enthusiasts. But I was genuinely kind of looking forward to this. Like, I'm a big fan of his Bram Stoker's Dracula, which was very controversial at the time. And I am, very susceptible to the inherent romanticism in the idea of, a brilliant artist making their potentially last masterpiece, a passion project that is, by all means, doomed to fail, but they just have to do it anyways. I think a lot of what went into the production of this movie appeals to me if from a theoretical sense. But this movie is fucking bonkers. This movie is absolutely insane. And there's a lot to enjoy about it. I had a surprisingly large crowd for 10 p.m. on a Monday. And the crowd definitely found a lot of stuff funny. I got to go back to the club in real time. And yeah, it was great. And the thing is, I do think there is artistic merit here. I appreciate what the story was trying to do, even though it is so outlandish while also being so incredibly transparent in terms of messaging. The messaging is also not my favorite, and that has been a theme with Francis Ford Coppola's filmography for me personally. But it's just not cohesive. It's not cohesive in any regard. It's not visually cohesive. The acting is all over the fucking place, as everyone has already said. It's incredibly bizarre and disorienting at times. And I think the effort to be controversial by hiring people intentionally who've been canceled is not nearly as clever as he thinks it is, in a meta or in a contextual story way, because a lot of these actors are just not being utilized properly. They're not playing to their strengths. They don't seem to know which movie they're in. A lot of them seem to be acting in completely different ideas of what this movie is supposed to be. He introduces this movie as a fable. It's also dedicated to his late wife Eleanor, and there is a lot of romanticism baked into the story, even though the gender roles are incredibly archaic. And the thing is, I am generally very willing to give a lot of grace to allegorical storytelling. I absolutely love when a movie or a book or something can be interpreted as a folktale or a fable. I love movies like The Substance they have one very clear message, and the way they tell it is very overt, but that is with intention. This movie does not feel like a fable. This movie feels like a collection of references to other media and mythologies that's kind of shoved together in a way like that joke from Forgetting Sarah Marshall, where he's talking about the tattoos on Russell Brand's characters' bodies, and he's like, these are 17 different conflicting ideologies. It just means nothing. And so ultimately, I think the greatest significance of this film is just its existence, the fact that it exists at all. And I think if you're a cinephile, it's worth seeing for that. I did laugh a lot. I think that it's entertaining, definitely inadvertently. But I did walk out of the theater feeling a little bit sad, because I couldn't help but compare it to Hayao Miyazaki's The Boy and the Heron, which is another brilliant master of his craft, creating potentially his last great work, his testament to his legacy. And whereas that one felt very intentional in the ways it was evocative and almost intentionally alienating to new audiences because it was so self-referential and so personal, in a way that felt really poetic and beautiful, this one just feels like someone who has maybe not doesn't have the capacity to make the kind of great art that he used to anymore. And I don't honestly even know if that's a bad thing. I don't know if I want to be working till I die. I think that one of the most charming things about Coppola is that his entire family works in the film industry, and I think that's in part because he's tried to have a close family life despite being one of the greats working in his field throughout his entire life. So yeah, I mean, maybe it's not a sad story after all, but I'm happy for the people who are going to love this. I'm sure there's going to be defenders immediately. There's a high probability that in 5-10 years this is going to be a cult classic. I don't know, maybe but it didn't work for me, and I wish that it did.